You probably own some of these comic books. I love this list, and you need to stay tuned to number 1 because I thought this book was so underpriced and undervalued for over a decade.
Yeah, like Tom said, it's a cool list. There's a lot of stuff on this list that I have not seen on the list before. It's new, it's fresh, it's original, so you guys should definitely hit the like and subscribe because we do this every single week.
This whole list is absolutely driven by nostalgia, and no exception to that rule. Number 10 on the list, Batman 89, number 1. These are stories from the Tim Burton universe, and if you loved Michael Keaton as much as I did as Batman, you always wanted more, and this comic book finally gave you what you were looking for. We're seeing $15 average sales and a high 9.8 sale of $100 just this last week.
Did you guys see the Oscars? It was so dope. Arnold Schwarzenegger on screen with Danny DeVito, giving Michael Keaton crap for beating both of them up on the big screen because they both portrayed villains, Penguin and Mr. Freeze. And Michael Keaton just says, come and get me. You know, he's such a badass, and he's gotta be Bruce Wayne again. The Flash wasn't enough. Where's Batman Beyond?
And this is a really cool book. This was just a miniseries, Batman 89. It's basically Tim Burton's third Batman movie. Like, if he was able to make a movie after Batman Returns, you get the first appearance of one of the Wayans brothers as Robin, which was something that was supposed to happen in this unmade movie that never happened, so it is cool to see that play out. You get to see this universe's version of, like, Two-Face Harvey Dent actually come to fruition in this run as well. It's a really cool book. The sequel series is actually coming out right now, too, Batman 89 Echoes, where we get kind of like a Harley Quinn and a Scarecrow version of these characters, too. So it's a really cool book. I would recommend it.
An increase of copies sold of 114% after the Oscars. This book came out in 2021. I don't see any other reason besides that pushing this book so far up on our list. Hit the like, slap the subscribe, but also do yourself a solid and keep up on all comic news, books that are spiking, and books that are taking hits. You may want to purchase them by downloading Key Collector Comics. Code TOM101 unlocks a free 2-week subscription of the app I use every single day to keep up on all things funny books.
Next up, we have our first X-Men book of many, technically. This is Avengers Annual number 10. This is the first appearance of Rogue and the first cover appearance of Mystique, actually.
$150 average sales, 9/8 hitting around the $850 marker. That's the high sale that's recent, and this book has taken a plunge. It hit $2,500 at one point, and this is also one of Todd McFarlane's favorite comic books of all times, and I'm not making that up. He said that to me in our interview. I'll put a link up here. You got to check that out.
A 225% increase in copies sold this week, again because we are seeing Rogue in the X-Men 97 show, and it's kind of nice to have this with a little bit more meat on the bone, because last time we were just talking about her butt, and we know that she's in the show.
It's been about a month since we chatted about this book last, and since then there's been an increase of census count of 60 copies, 3 of which graded at a 9.8. Hit the like button. We're the only channel that is currently covering, tracking, and reporting on the increase of census count week over week because we cover so many damn books every week.
This list is going to be X-Men 97 heavy, so I don't want to get into spoilery stuff necessarily, but me personally, one of those plot lines I'm looking forward to seeing explored the most is what's happening between Rogue and Gambit and Magneto. Let's get into the next number, though. I don't want to spoil anything. We got more X-Men stuff to talk about. Number 8, Uncanny X-Men. Number 213 from 1987 with $25 average sales. We did see a high 9.8 hit $150 a few days ago.
First cameo appearance of Mr. Sinister. We'll get to that because I want to talk about Betsy Braddock joining the X-Men and adopting the name Psylocke, which is the key appearance in this book, and what they're doing with Morph, because this is not a character that's just being thrown away, getting killed off in the early episodes, and then Wolverine shouting their name for season on end. This is a character that can transform into any X-Men, and they're using them as such, allowing any cameo to take place without having to form the entire cartoon narrative around it.
Tom actually pointed this out to me before we even hit the mic when we were reviewing the script before this, but Psylocke did appear in this episode because Morph shapeshifted into Psylocke in the middle of a fight to kind of keep their opponents on their toes. You know, when you can be anybody anytime, you should be, and that would make for an interesting fight sequence. And I love that they're exploring that shapeshifty nature of the character this time.
This is a 271% increase in copies sold this week, and yes, it is Psylocke and Mr. Sinister. But the last time we talked about this book, it was more because of the awesome Sabretooth Wolverine cover, part of the Mutant Massacre. This went for $715 in May of 2021. But if we look back to May of last year, 2023, we actually have 202 more slabs on the census, including 36 more 9.8s, which would definitely explain such a precipitous drop-off because there are so many more copies available.
Join the mystery mail call. We'll send you comics every month and you support the show directly. One per box. Dan Panosian, Jackpot, Black Cat #1. Peter's hit the jackpot twice this month, and you can too. We also have a Deadpool #1 ASM 300 homage by the same artist going out to every single member. Link in the description, comictom101.com to join the community. And let's chat about number 7 on the list because Justice League Dark #1. New 52, 2011 is here. Everyone's got to read New 52. That's actually what got me back into reading comics hard. And this is the first appearance of the JLA Dark new team. And it's seeing $10 average sales, $177 for a CGC 9.8, all because of James Gunn. And could you imagine James Gunn writing Justice League Dark? Can you imagine him bringing in the Hellblazer? I'm all in. This is great spec.
All of the New 52 is fantastic. It is worth reading. All of the writers, all of the characters, all of the artists. It's really great. The unfortunate thing is it's basically not canon for a lot of this stuff. So wouldn't it be fantastic if we had someone like, I don't know, James Gunn actually start to do something with these characters? And that's why we're seeing a 300% increase in copies sold this week, because all of a sudden this New 52 stuff that people were kind of forgetting about is potentially relevant again.
Well, he did post a picture of Deadman to his Instagram a couple weeks ago with no context, no explanation, no anything. We haven't gotten any follow-ups or updates on that, and so it's naturally got people looking at this corner of the DC universe. J.J. Abrams was attached to a Justice League Dark project a couple years ago before the Warner Brothers Discovery, James Gunn merger, all that stuff, so I'm pretty sure that's not happening anymore. We've also had Guillermo del Toro attached to a Justice League Dark movie for years. I think this is just kind of up in the air. I don't think there's any concrete plans, but we did get confirmation of a Teen Titans movie also this past week. It's just got people looking at the future of what's coming in DC, especially now that James Gunn's stuff is starting to get closer and closer.
Would it be any surprise to see James Gunn prioritize Zatanna, Shade the Changing Man, Hellblazer, Madame Xanadu? This seems like easy spec. Go hunting, and let's look at number 6 on the list with Uncanny XMen 168. That's seeing $15 average sales and $310 for a CGC 9.8.
This is the first appearance of Madeline Pryor, who later becomes the Goblin Queen. We did get, a pretty condensed version of this whole plotline in this week's X-Men 97 featuring Madeline Pryor and the Goblin Queen. We have a 282% increase in copies sold of this book for that reason. And then there was a new record-setting sale for the Canadian price variant this week in a 9.8 that went for $640, 42% over its old record of $450 that was set back in 2022.
I'd be curious if this book is going to matter really long term, but seeing a Canadian price variant at a 9.8 break records is not a surprise to me. These books are tough as hell.
So if you're fairly new to comics and you're thinking, I've heard of this name before, it's maybe because you saw her in Dark Web, the Marvel event, last year. This is one of those characters that she may go away, but she's never gone for long, and they always find some way to bring her back.
Yeah, without spoiling anything about this show, I will say I feel people were primed for this character in this narrative that they were able to accomplish in a short 30 minutes. I love cartoons.
It's Gambit, guys. Gambit.
Hey, guess what? Surprise, we got X-Men stuff.
Oh, what?
There's more X-Men stuff.
I love this book, and we even have it.
It just happens to be here on the table for no reason.
X-Men 266. I love this book. The whole reason why I watched the animation as a kid was because of Gambit. We have the first appearance in full of Gambit. I own a 9.8 newsstand copy. I don't care what this book is selling for because I'm not going to sell it for whatever it's going for right now. I will hold this until I feel comfortable, and it may never happen. I'm holding it upside down. I don't care.
That's a good start. It's your book. You keep it as long as you want to, Tommy. It's okay.
It's a newsie.
We all loved Gambit, and that could be the reason this book is here. There doesn't have to be any movie spec, any cool thing that happened in the cartoon. I think when people think X-Men animated series, they think Gambit, and that's probably enough to put this book halfway on the list.
$215 average prices, $700 for a 9.8. It feels soft, doesn't it?
Yeah, but take into consideration that we have 119 new slabs over all grades in the last 2 weeks, guys, and that includes 23 more 9.8s. Obviously, the market's going to be soft because there are so many more of them out there. There are more available, and you have people just grading to flip. I think eventually this will settle, so if you've got it, hold it. This is a fantastic book, and I think long-term, this is one of those that, especially guys from our generation, are really going to want to have in their collection.
And it's that reason why this book is up 134% in copies sold. And it's great to see Gambit back. But also, don't forget, Channing Tatum was supposed to portray Gambit. He'll likely do a feature in Deadpool 3. And we know we're going to see Gambit long term. You just may have to wait a little bit. But considering this book hit right around $1,700 for a 9.8. There's a lot of meat left on that bone. Looking at number 4 on the list, we have Stray Dogs number 1, Trish Forstner, Tony Fleece. I have to assume that Feral's success and launch over the last week has propelled their other work that was optioned upon release that hit heights of over $600 at a 9.8.
What surprised me was that Tom remembered that this book hit over $600 in 2021. He just pulled that out of nowhere.
Dude, I have useless information in my head. I can tell you books, their heights, based on the year that they hit them.
That's very useful for your particular job.
Like real important information about life, but I'll remember that Stray Dogs hit $600 at one point.
It's very important to know. I was personally thinking about maybe the people out there whose intro to Tony Fleece and Trish Forstner was Feral number 1 this week, and getting to experience that there's a whole other book out there that's already done and out there for you to grab and explore and read called Stray Dogs, and it's amazing. I think that might be what's happening here.
$20 average is $80 for a 9.8. But hold your copy because this is still option and I can see it happening. And shout out to Tony Fleece who provided me issues 1 through 3 of Feral. And it is Walking Dead vibes, yo. It could really do a long-term release where there's a ton of issues. I think this could be a 50-plus long arc because of how they're writing it, and the drawing is superb, and there is so much to be done with cats, and I love it.
You got to hook me up with those other 2. I only read the first one. I read the first one in print like everybody else, and Tom's got the next 2 over here somewhere. I want to know what happens, man. I'm bitter.
Oh, snap. Tony reached out as well because the Comics Pro variant, we had chatted about making the list last week at number 10, and he provided a print count on it. We suspected it was probably between 500 to 1,000, and he confirmed after looking it up and reaching out. Thank you, Tony. Follow him on Instagram. 360 were printed.
Wow.
Super low.
Absolutely.
Good luck finding that.
Number 3 on the list, Uncanny X-Men. Number 2, 21. After tons and tons of speculation and rumors flying, often imitated, never duplicated, Mr. Sinister showing up. We have Uncanny X-Men 221. First appearance of Mr. Sinister. We are seeing $75 average sales and a high 9.8 sale of $330 on auction. There were a bunch of buy it nows in the $275 to $300 range. You know what that means? The demand is higher than the people who are throwing them out there. Normally, when we see these auctions, we are seeing the prices go for $40, $50 less than what the buy it now price is. This really means that people believe this book should be worth more. The record high was $929 in May of 2021, and we know that we've had rumors of a live-action Sinister, and with all of the breadcrumbs dropped, we absolutely expected Mr. Sinister to be showing up in X-Men 97.
Well, he showed up, and this cover doesn't feature him on it, and this first appearance has been throttled because of the lack of appearance on cover. I think this book is far too cheap. $300 on a 9.8 is way under what I think this should be worth, despite the cartoon featuring him and any live action possibilities.
You also have to take into consideration this book did hit the list last week. It was number 8, and since then we have 19 new slabs across all grades too, including 5 new 9.8s. Again, that is going to modify the market in some way. They are out there, and I'm excited. I honestly had never read this era of X-Men, so this episode of X-Men 97 was a cool intro to the character for me, and I can personally see how somebody would get excited enough to go pick up a copy, and that explains the 121% increase in copies sold compared to last week.
Which brings us to number 2 on the list with Uncanny X-Men Annual number 17. What a high ranking on an affordable book that you can go get right now for like $5, averaging around $8. I don't even have a recent 9.8 sale to report on. Probably safe to pay around $50 to $75 for this one, but it's the first appearance of the X-Cutioner, who was featured in episode 2 of the animated series. How cool is it to see this character?
I completely forgot this happened, honestly. After episode 2 came out and they had that cool cliffhanger with Madeline Pryor, Jean Grey, Mr. Sinister, all that lead up made me completely forget that this guy was introduced last week. He had a really cool fight scene with the X-Men. And I think, especially when you think about Magneto leading the X-Men, you're kind of wondering who's going to be the villain. How are they going to fight? What's going to happen moving forward with this season? And I think this X-Cutioner guy is perfectly positioned to be a long-term antagonist for the rest of this season, which is probably why we're seeing this book hit the list all the way up here at number 2 with a 567% increase in copies sold. That's pretty high.
If you don't already have this in your collection, this may be some cheap spec to go pick up if you're getting it raw. Try and find it in the poly bag with the card. This is one of those characters that we may very well be seeing a few more times throughout the season. So long term, you might see something with it. But again, don't spend a whole lot on this book.
Which brings us to the number 1 hottest trending book in the marketplace.
I hope it's X-Men.
Is it X-Men?
It's indeed X-Men.
This list needs some X-Men on it.
Is there not enough?
I think we need more.
Let
Can we
us
have 2
know.
number 1s?
Let us know in the comment section. Is there enough X-Men on this list? Because this next book, I have said for so long, is underrated, undervalued, and is prime for spiking up.
And it's brown.
Live action potential. And after this week, you have animation potential that's clearly spiking it up. We have Uncanny X-Men 239, the first cover appearance and second full appearance of Mr. Sinister.
Also in this book, you had the first cover appearance of Madeline Pryor as the Goblin Queen. And this is part 1 of the Inferno storyline. So this book right here is kind of the comic book equivalent of the episode of X-Men 97 that we just got. I think it perfectly explains why this book is here at the top of the list.
We haven't chatted about this book in about a year. And I don't think it was because of X-Men 97 as much as it was about people trying to figure out what villain are they going to give us on the big screen. Like, they're not going to do Magneto again. Like, I hope care to see Apocalypse. Like, Sentinels, it's already been done. Are they going to do a freaking another rendition of the Dark Phoenix? Probably not, right?
Probably.
They probably actually will do that. But Mr. Sinister could be the live action choice for a villain. And it makes sense that they would be priming people up on a character that they may not be as familiar with in the animated show to then blow our minds with big casting for Mr. Sinister on the big screen.
That's true. Plus, any X-Men live-action MCU thing is going to be so far down the road from now that I don't think we run the risk of stepping on toes with this animated series. We did see a 686% increase in copies sold. Not sure if anybody said that, so I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm just excited. I'm just excited, man. The way that this show is able to condense all of this stuff, all of these big meaty plot lines and crazy comic book storylines into a 30-minute story arc is pretty impressive, and I'm excited to see what happens next week.
I love this book. So seeing $35 average sales and a high 9.8 of $195, this is still one of those books that I think is probably a little bit below where it should be.
In the last year, we've seen an increase of census count across all grades of 171 slabs. And wait for it, 9/8 alone made up 48 copies. That's a lot of new 9.8s. The availability is clearly outdoing the demand, keeping the price a little soft on a book that I think has a long-term potential. What do you think about this? Am I wrong? What do you think about X-Men 97 Episode 3? No spoilers in the chat, but I want to hear your thoughts. And, of course, as always,
Geek responsibly.
Enough said.